within the context of what I'm given here for this episode, there's no good argument that Archer has, I think, is the problem here. Like there's if the show was able to make a good argument, I think that Archer's insanity could be reasonably underplayed. And they would be like, let's rely on this good argument that Archer can make, because then the crew will have to be really sort of like, there's a discussion amongst the rest of the crew of like, well, like this is kind of a good point, but is this the best thing for us to do? The problem is that I can't think of a single moral argument that is, we have to save these 30 enemy children over the billions back home on Earth. Like ignoring even the species aspect of it. It's like, it's the ultimate trolley problem that it's like, I'm not going to pull the handle to save these billions of people and kill 30 because I think these 30 are worth something. I think that he's just, the ethical argument is like extremely difficult for me here, that you're going to make this conversation. And that's why it makes it seem that the crew is idiotic and not immediately. I don't even, what's the point of this? The doctor can tell the captain what to do if the captain just goes, fuck yourself, and he doesn't do it.
Right.
Like, why can't they just take him out of command? And why do the Makos only listen? It's just this, there's no, it's like a lot of Enterprise episodes in that I feel I can understand what they're doing, but it feels like their fingertips just can't grab the idea as what so it's like they're just sort of floundering at it, and you're like, I know this is supposed to play out a certain way, but this is not happening right. And I think fundamentally it all comes down to Archer making a bizarre decision that only makes sense in the context of if this universe is happening in prior episodes. Archer's flip-flopping back and forth is noticed by the crew, and they don't think he's acting particularly irrational in this episode. But I don't get that sense at all. I don't get the sense that the crew wants to consider talking about this, or that Archer's weirdness in previous episodes is an intentional thing that the writers have been doing. So when you get to Hatchery, just no one makes a good point. There's no conference room scene because the show doesn't do that, where where all the other characters go like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, this is not the best thing to do. It's all one after the other, and he shoots them all down and says, I'll put you in the brig. I'll put you in the brig. It's like Oprah just putting everybody in the brig, and they can't mount an offensive against him.
Yeah, it's... and maybe that's part of why I didn't recognize that he was acting weird, is because he seems to flip-flop so much that I was like, well, I mean, I guess in this one he's just overly empathetic. But even so, I think the ethical argument is interesting, but the problem is I think they put too many boundaries on it to make it completely insane. So, like, the idea in and of itself on whether or not they should go out of their way to save these kids is interesting if there is a reasonable way to do it where it is an inconvenience but not a completely destructive inconvenience.
Sure. Like taking them on the ship with them until they find a Xindi ship or something. Or like, oh, there's a signal going out and the Xindi are on their way, but by the time they get here, they're going to be dead unless we do something. It's like, okay. So there you've got a little bit more wiggle room. But when it gets into, you have to take a third of your antimatter out to boost up this ship in order to put these eggs in a microwave for another 6 days or whatever. Yeah.
It gets harder to track and harder to be like, okay, yeah, he's clearly going nuts here. But which is what makes the episode so difficult, is because they're trying, it seems, to have this ethical discussion, but they end up making the ethical discussion look like insanity. And so that's why I was like, I don't know what you're supposed to take away from this, because all it seems to me is like they're saying that empathy during wartime has its place, but let's be honest, we need to let these people die. It's like, okay, that's not a Star Trek story, or a theme that you come away from in Star Trek. So I wonder if there's a different version of this where there wasn't the egg spray stuff or something, because that element just makes the entire thing feel really weird, and it's just kind of lazy because they're doing this thing. And again, even if they're not trying to get into the ethics of saving enemy children or whatever, there's still nothing to be gleaned from this by the end of it. Like I was saying at the beginning, I don't know what any of this is supposed to have meant. Is it implication that Archer is going too far? Well, not really, because he wasn't of his own mind. Is it implication that they are acting too intensely too like single-mindedly in this mission? Well, I don't really know, because everybody kind of laughed it off at the end, so no one really learned anything. I don't know what the point of any of it is supposed to be. Like you can't have this kind of story and just come away with everybody just kind of setting back to one and going like, well, we did what we could. Anyway, out of here. There's 16 of them running around down there. The rest of them will probably be fine by the time the next Xindi cruiser shows up or whatever. It's like, well, what